Hey everybody, this is me, Lance Meister, Undead Viking. I am here on a brilliant, as you can see the light behind me, but cold Minnesota day, which is pretty standard. I'm still got a little bit of a cough, so I will be sipping on a drink while I do this video. There's things happen in life where you just start doing something or you go back into old hobbies or whatever. Like my son recently was talking about how much he wanted to try painting miniatures. So I went and dug out all my old miniature stuff from my this back closet that we have and dug it all out. And we've been doing that again, once again, reaffirming my belief that I am horrible at painting miniatures. He's really good though. I mean, he's still got those young eyes or whatever, but so I've been like doing stuff like that. I have been writing more, which I'm kind of pleased with myself. I'm not going to share any of that, but I've been kind of happy with my writing recently. And one of the things that I really did this past year, and actually from the inspiration from my wife, Rebecca, was I actually started reading more. Now, I read lots of stuff. I mean, I read news. I read lots of RPG books, if you will, like that. That's one of my I things that I really enjoy. Sitting down and reading like a setting book in an RPG, or cracking open like some new rule set or whatever, and seeing how it works and everything like that. And I usually steal a lot of that stuff for when we play D&D or any of the other RPGs that we do. Uh, but what my wife started like really getting into reading, and she's joined a couple of book clubs, and I think that's awesome. And while I'm not in a book club, I remember when I was younger, I used to read all the time. I always had a book, always was reading, even when, excuse me, even when I had uh like didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, I would still go to the library and check out books and read something, whatever was interesting to me at that time. Now, I've always been into like science fiction, fantasy. Those have always been my go-tos. And I would still read like maybe one or two books a year. If and that when I say books, like I would read lots of like RPG books stuff. I'm talking about sitting down with a novel or a collection of short stories or what have you, and I would read that. And what I realized is that I missed it. I missed that aspect. I missed the process of that, of reading the book. And I saw my wife reading more, and I was like, huh, we would go to a bookstore, and she'd pick up one or two books, and I picked up one, and then I read it, and then I picked up another one, and I read it, and so on and so forth. And I definitely went back down into the rabbit hole, and I tried to figure out exactly how many books I read over the last year. And I think it is 61. Now, I mean, I know there's lots of people out there that read like way more than I do. And I should say that's reading. That's actually reading a book. And that's not audiobook. Now, I'm not downplaying audiobooks in any way, shape, or form. I understand it is sometimes difficult to find a spot or time to sit down and just read. If you have, things that you need to take care of, where you can listen to an audiobook, or if it's just that's your thing, it works better for you to be able to listen to the book being read to you. Then, I mean, heck, I mean, I definitely have. I remember I used to have to drive from Fargo to Minneapolis. It was like a 4-hour drive. Way back in the day, I did that a lot in my 20s, and I would always like listen to audiobooks on my car stereo the entire time. It was a wonderful way to pass the time. So I'm not bagging on that, but I'm just saying that these are books that I actually had a physical copy of it and I read it. And these are all physical copies. I don't like reading digital words any more than I have to. I mean, I have to all the time for my job, but just having a book in your hands is good. So anyway, all that to say, in 2024, I read a little over 60 books. That's an approximation. I was trying to I mean, because I made notes about each book that I read, and so, but I think I might have forgotten one or two in there. But regardless, I'm not saying the number to impress you in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that's the pool of which now I'm going to talk about six books that kind of stuck with me. And I was going to say my five books of 2024, but then I realized it had to be six, and then I was like, well, I just say six books that stood out for me, that stuck with me for whatever reason, and that's what this video is going to be about. So after that long introduction, here we go. So these are in no order whatsoever. These are just I have a stack of them here. Actually, there's one missing. We'll get to that one, and I'll explain why it's missing when we get to that one. I'm probably just going to have to find an image or something and pop it up onto the screen. All right. So, and these necessarily didn't get printed in 2024. These are just either books that were suggested to me or I stumbled upon them while at a bookstore or whatever. And so if there's a very good chance these were published preceding, I don't know when, I'm not going to check, but these are just books that I read in 2024. All right, so the first book that I want to talk about is this book. It is called Letters to the Purple Satin Killer, now by Joshua Chaplinsky. I want to make sure yeah. So this is so a little backstory. And also I want to mention that if I've been reading nonfiction books, talking about historical events or whatever. I think that's as you get older, you're supposed to. I don't know, but none of them they didn't stick with me. Maybe I just need to find the right nonfiction books. So all these are gonna be fiction books. But anyway, Letters to the Purpose Satin Killer. So I tend to read science fiction, fantasy, horror, and mystery, and not necessarily in that order, but that is where I gravitate to. But what this book is there is it is a series of letters that were written to a fictional serial killer that called the Purple Satin Killer. And this is after the serial killer was caught, convicted, and executed for their crimes. But he received tons of letters while he was in prison. And this is a collection of those, and they come from all sorts of places. And I'm not going to dive too far into that because if this interests you, you're going to read it. This reminded me a little bit. Remember, 2-3 years ago, there was a kind of a resurgence of this, and I don't know if you saw these, but where you could sign up to be sent letters that would be part of a mystery, and you would get a letter and then you'd open it up and it would be oh, it's these are some clues. Then you get a letter a few weeks later and the same thing, and you'd slowly get a mystery and you'd solve it. My wife Rebecca and I, we did that, and it was something like that. It reminded me, it isn't a strict connection, but it reminded me a lot of that, where as you slowly went through the book, there was mysteries or ideas that were slowly peeled away, and you drew connections between the letters that the serial killer got. And I mean, there are some chilling moments. There are definitely some kind of graphic things that are referenced here. So I mean, the reader beware kind of thing. But I found it to be a very fascinating book. It was presented in a very, I guess, each person that was writing letter, each one had their own voice, if you will, and you could kind of get that through the writing. So I was really impressed by the author's ability to do that. And ultimately, there is like a connection and an ongoing story that you slowly uncover as you read, and it is very satisfying. There you go. That is Letters to the Purple Satin Killer. And that's just one of my six. All right. So now this book, I remember, I saw it on like for some reason it Barnes and Noble, it was set aside on its own table, and usually when they do those things I don't usually buy into it. I'm like, what is, but it was on its own table, and there was, and I was like, so I read the back of it, and I picked it up. And this is a book called Dreadful, by Caitlin Rozakis. If I'm pronouncing these incorrectly, I apologize. So this is as you can probably guess, it is a fantasy novel that goes with the idea of, and my understanding is that her husband had this idea for his D&D campaign and then didn't see it through. Like it didn't like culminate in an end. Either the campaign ended, or like the players didn't pursue that certain venue or whatever. And so she wanted to come up with a story that completed the story arc for a character that was in that game. And I didn't realize that when I was reading it. It was like deeper diving into the book or whatever was what taught me that. But this is it has a fabulous opening for a book. Basically, it starts off with a wizard's laboratory is like on fire, and there's obviously been a horrible accident that has occurred, and there is this dark wizard that is in this lab, in presumably their laboratory, and they have no idea what's going on. They have complete amnesia. They don't know why they're there. They don't know what they were doing. They have an army of goblin servants that are willing to die for them. And he like doesn't know his name, doesn't know what's going on, and he realizes he's part of like this cabal of evil wizards and sorcerers or whatever, and they have like a big thing that they're planning, like some earth changing, world shattering thing that he's part of, this idea, but he has no idea what's going on. He even has this like princess that he has captured and in his dungeon, and like he doesn't know why he has her. It kind of, if I had to just say what it was, it reminded me of the old myth books by Robert Asprin. That kind of has a kind of a whimsical attitude and kind of a nice humor aspect going on, but it isn't. It's much more bloody. It's much more deadly, if you will. So it isn't it isn't cartoonish. So the Aspirin books were very satirical, and they were very I don't know, like they weren't like, I guess, gritty fantasy in any way, shape, or form. They were very, light touch fantasy, if you will. And this is definitely like people die, get murdered. So it definitely is not a light touch. It has some seriousness going on, but it still has this kind of whimsy going on, and then combine that with like Total Recall, where you basically have a wizard that um starts saying, well, why was I evil in the first place? Why was I doing all these horrible things? And starts to kind of like hate the person that they were before they lost all their memories. And fantastic book, a total page turner. I mean, I really, really, really enjoyed this one, and I can't. I mean, I would really recommend it to anybody that kind of interests you, and had a lot of things, and I look forward to the possibility, because like of like maybe the Caitlin writing more books in this world that she created. I would read those in a heartbeat. So really good stuff. All right. So I might as well talk about the book that I don't have the actual book for. All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. Again, I don't know how this got recommended to me. I think I saw it on a list or something like that, and the idea of it intrigued me. Reason I don't have it is my father was at my house last night, and my father is a voracious reader. Just like he loves reading, and he loves reading mysteries and thrillers. And so this book, All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby, is the story of a small town southern state sheriff uh, who is black, who is elected to that position, who is dealing with um, racism and identity and everything that goes along with the prejudice that he has to deal with, but also the fact that he is in charge. And then combine that with the fact that there is a I mean the book opens up with a very bloody beginning of a former student going back to their high school and killing a teacher at that high school. And so I guess warnings. There's no children. Like there isn't like a school shooting type of situation, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's somebody who goes back to the school, but they do say there's been a shooting at a school, and then they go through the process of evacuating the school, and that is and it is a good opening. It grabs you and holds on to you, and as they kind of go into the process of investigating why that former student went to, and combined with the fact that the student, like, who's like in their early 20s, that went, the former student that went back there, they are the son of somebody that the sheriff went to high school with, like played on the football team, the high school football team with. And so, and in as a situation, he has to deal with the fact that, like, um, I'm not trying to give too many spoilers, but unfortunately, I mean, in a situation where the person comes out of a situation where they've murdered somebody, they have a gun in their hand, and they charge the police, and there's a gunfight, and that person loses their life, and he has to go to his former friend and explain to him why they were forced to kill his son. And so there's I mean, I know this this sounds like it's a very heavy book, and it is. It is a very heavy emotional book. I won't deny that. But embroiled along with that is there is this giant mystery that is going on underneath the outer aspect of the town that they live in. And um the name of the town is, even, it's like Charon or Charon, however you want to pronounce that. The person, the guy who directed the riverboat across the river Styx or whatever, like the so I mean, it definitely has a lot of symbolism. It definitely has a lot of weight to it. And like I said, I devoured that book in like 3 days. It was so good, as far as like the mystery that was going on. And I will warn you, this book it's very graphic. It deals with things that include, they don't describe it, blow by blow or anything like that, but they're very they don't go into it or dive into it like in graphic detail, but it deals with like the fact that there has been murders of children that have happened. So I'm just saying that just because if you think this book would be interesting to you and you want to dive in and look into it. But it is a wonderful thriller. It is a wonderful mystery. It has some noir aspects of it, and the author S.A. Cosby, he did a wonderful job of, like, baiting the hook and keeping you turning the pages. I mean, there's things in the book that, like, it made me angry, but I realized it was a very good way to do it. Like you've seen the scene in a movie or a TV show where somebody will, like, I got something to show you, chief, and it's like, and you're not going to like it, and they hand the person a piece of paper, and they look at it, and it's like, oh my gosh, we gotta go, and then they leave, and you have no idea what's going on because but the piece of paper obviously was some huge deal, and they don't explain it to you, and you have to wait until they go and do their thing before you realize what's going on. Stuff like that happens into it where it's like they get sent an email and they click on it and read it, and he's like, and there's like, oh dear God, it's like it's like we need to go and do this immediately kind of thing. And but you don't know what the email had until later, but it keeps you going. It keeps you invested. So really, really good book. Strongly suggested. All right. So the next book I want to talk about is more of a horror book. And this is Lost Man's Lane by Scott Carson. Now again, this is another book. Actually, this one got suggested to me while I was at Barnes and Noble. I was kind of perusing around and struck up a conversation with somebody else who was looking at books, and we talked about different authors we liked as far as horror because I was in the horror section, and they mentioned this book to me, and they said it's if you like Stephen King, he said you're probably going to like this book, and he was right. It was a the premise of this book is that the main character on the day that they get their driver's license. And this is such a great premise and a great opening. But on the day that they get their driver's license, they get pulled over by a police officer, and for speeding, and the police officer starts talking to them, and he gets this really really weird feeling like of this guy, like he's kind of overly aggressive, kind of like threatens violence. And then he looks in his rearview mirror and he sees that they have a young woman, like in the back of the patrol car, and he can see that they're crying. And he's just like, oh my gosh, it's like, so he must have arrested her or something along those lines. And you remember, like, and she was wearing like a work uniform, like she had been a server at a restaurant, and I forget what the name of the restaurant was, but he recognized the clothing that she was wearing, like, and he just found it was odd that this young woman had this, like basically still her work uniform on for a restaurant that he knew about, and that he's been pulled over. And the guy gets like super aggressive with him, and he says, I'm gonna let you off with a warning. And he gives him a warning, and he says, if you ever if our paths cross ever again, it's like you're gonna be in trouble. Watch it, kind of thing. And so he's completely unsettled by the whole deal, and he goes home. And the next day he hears about the fact that the girl, he sees a thing, like a notice or whatever, that girl is missing, and that nobody knows where she is, and she's been abducted, and everybody fears the worst. And so he goes and says, well, hey, I got pulled over, and this girl was in the back seat of the patrol car, and this is the guy's name. And here's the warning that he wrote for me. And they and so they look into it, and there is no police officer or highway patrolman or sheriff's deputy or anything like that by that name, fits that description anywhere. And so he starts trying to deal with the fact that, what the heck, I mean, I saw him, I saw this guy, I know what was going on. And as it progresses and as time goes on, he starts to, like, think about it more and start wondering what's going on more. And he starts, and he starts worrying about the fact that, like, since he came forward, nobody could find this guy. What if this guy comes and comes after him? And like weird things really start happening. And it is a true horror novel. There is a private detective that comes to town that is looking into the disappearance of the girl, and he actually enlists the aid of of the boy. I mean, like when I say boy, he's like 18, I believe, if I remember correctly. He enlists the aid and he goes to work for him, and they start investigating this whole situation together and start looking into it. There is all kinds of crazy things that start happening, like that can only be described as being supernatural. It is, if you like the way Stephen King kind of slowly develops a story, and and like lets you kind of think ahead of him and like think, oh, what if it's this, or what if it's that, and then as you read, your idea is either confirmed or like thrown to the side. That's what Lost Man's Lane does. Fabulous book. In a lot of ways, one of the biggest knocks about Stephen King is that he doesn't really know how to, you know, a guy who's literally sold probably a billion books, right? But one of his biggest knocks is the fact that like he doesn't really know how to finish a story. Like, and maybe that's deserved or maybe not. I don't know. But Scott Carson, this does it really well. He finishes the story well. And there's a lot of really good supporting characters, as far as like uh the main character is like he becomes really really good friends with this jock at school. He's got a girlfriend. His mom is a big part of the story as well, this private detective. I don't want to give anything else away, but um well worth the read, and I look forward to reading something else from him, as far as that goes. All right. So the next book, All the Fiends of Hell. I bought this strictly for the picture on the front, and the fact that I was like, holy cow, this looks cool. And it was in the science fiction section, and I have to say, um, I it should have been probably in the horror section, but it is there's some very very unsettling scenes you're going to have to read if you read through this. But this is a book about a really really bad, like, I mean, War of the Worlds, right? I mean, a really really bad War of the Worlds. I mean, obviously the War of the Worlds and like the aliens, Martians showing up and killing a bunch of people is bad, but this is like really really bad, like end of the world bad, aliens of like just, and true aliens as well. I mean, like, I mean, not like, show up and like start obliterating the human race in very, very graphic and awful ways. Um, and this is the story of like just a normal guy that has to somehow navigate this dystopic world I mean, that by he didn't live through the initial attack because like he was super, like he was a ex-Navy SEAL or anything. Like, he was just lucky, and having to adapt and figure out how to go on and find a reason to go on and proceed his way through what existence now is. At some points it did get a little bleak, almost too bleak for me. But I wanted to know how it ended, and I guess that's like the biggest like positive that I can say about any book, is that like I want to know how it ends. I want to know what the story is. And I was worried. I was super worried that, like, I mean, okay, as I was reading the book, like I didn't have this mentality of like, oh, I hope they find a way to like kill all the aliens and everything goes back to normal, or it's like, I understand if like the whole world ends and that's fine, or whatever. I didn't care how the book ended, but I wanted it to earn the ending that it got, right? I didn't want it to be like a quick glossed over summation, if you will. And this book earned its ending. It totally earned its ending, and I appreciated that a great deal. I mean, it can be a little bit of a tough read in a few places. Like there definitely were moments where I was reading it and like I didn't like, I wanted things to happen, more than they were happening. And I don't know if you're like me, but like sometimes when you're reading books and like you get to a spot where you're just not interested in what's going on, you want to kind of skim ahead to like something better. I found myself doing that in a couple of times. I had to stop myself and go back and really just take the time to process it and read the book. Like so I mean that's one of those things where if that happens too often, I usually end up not finishing a book. But that did happen a couple times when I was reading this. But very, very good. Very, very it was a book that um like I said, I bought it for the cover and it did not disappoint. So there you go. All the Fiends of Hell by Adam Neville. I apologize. Should have said the name to begin with. All right, last book. Hmm. So that is this, The Daughter's War. So Christopher Buehlman, he's written a few books that I've enjoyed, and he's written a few books that I've like, oh my gosh, like this can't be the same guy, right? Like that I haven't enjoyed reading. So the book before this that I bought like last year, like I mean, well, last year, 2023, last year, because I'm talking about 2024 books, um, was The Black-Tongued Thief. And The Black-Tongued Thief, if I had done a video, like saying these are the books that I read and these are like Black-Tongued Thief would have been my number one book. I would have actually said, this is my number one book. I have gone back and read The Black-Tongued Thief twice, just because I found it amazing. I found the world that Christopher Buehlman made for The Black Tongue Thief to be fantastic, and the fact that like there was supposed to be a sequel and it left the door open for a sequel, I was super excited to see that, and I wanted that to happen. Then I heard about the Daughter's War, and I was like, all right, cool, that's the next book, but this is a prequel, which it was I was annoyed by that, but so in the Black Tongue Thief, there is a character in there that this woman who is a Raven Knight that is like, very no nonsense, very powerful, very a great character. And this is the story of her. So in the Black Tongue Thief, they have references to what the Goblin War and like this like uh, uh, basically this horrific thing where like basically the goblins like they can reference like the goblins killed all the horses. They say that all the time, like the horses just don't exist anymore because they were killed by all the goblins. And and in the Black Tongue Thief, you have situations where basically like the war is over and there's very, very distinct um like borders between like that keep the goblins at bay. And the goblins aren't like D&D goblins where it's like, oh, it's like these little like squishy things that you can like hit with your backhand and kill. The goblins are malevolent and evil and awful. And so uh, this details, as you can see, goblins, guts, glory. This goes into very, very big detail about the Goblin War. And I like I said, I was originally like, oh, I wanted the continuation of the characters from the Black Tongue Thief, and I my understanding is that that book is still coming. But this gave me more of that world and gave me more of what was going on with it. And I've been really, really impressed by Christopher Buehlman's the last two books that he wrote. And while I didn't enjoy this as much as I enjoyed Black Tongue Thief, I did enjoy it. And this is like between this, I'd be hard pressed if I mean, as far as Dreadful and this are probably the best fantasy novels I read in this last year. So there you go. So I do think that if you haven't read either of them, read The Dark Tongue Thief first and then read this. You even though this is a prequel, go in that route, and I think you'll be very entertained. All right, so there you go. I don't know how. Yeah, I've thought about, whenever when I started this channel, I always said I would like. I mean, I started it when I talked about board games. I talked about board games all the time, and sometimes I did a role playing game review too. But and then I would like, so every once in a while I would give my random like thoughts about weird stuff that was bothering me at that time, or if I felt I had to say something. And ever since then, I've just said this channel's for me, right? The idea is that my great grandkids or something might tune in at some point and see what their great grandfather used to do or what he looked like or what he used to say, long after I am dirt. But I guess the whole point is that maybe if I read some, I'm already reading a couple books here in 2025, and I enjoy talking about books. I enjoy reading a good book and then talking about it. Or maybe if I read a really bad book, I can talk about that as well. I just one of those things too, but when I start reading a bad book, I don't finish it usually because I don't want to waste my time. So, but maybe I'll do more of these. Maybe I'll actually like review, like give longer reviews of books that I read, but again, don't expect any consistency or whatever with this channel. It never will be. Yeah, just I have too much stuff going on, and but if you read any of the books that I mentioned here and you want to say I was wrong or you agree, whatever, please comment below. I'll be happy to answer those. If you have any books that you read in 2024 that you thought were freaking amazing and you think I should know about them, it doesn't have to be mystery, horror, fantasy, sci-fi, any book at all. If you have something you think I want, or if there's an RPG book out there you think I should snag and read and talk about, yeah, I mean, tell me those things, and so I can maybe track it down, read it myself, and go for that. But yeah, tell me what your favorite books of 2024 that you read, and maybe it's something that I'm always on the line or would love a good hint at uh, a good read in my future. So, all right. Well, one last cough before I finish this off. As always, I am the Undead Viking. I am Lance Meister. I am up here in the frozen north in Minnesota. It's supposed to be like minus 15 or something ridiculous. But and my laundry's done. You can probably maybe hear that chiming in the background. I should probably go fold that. But just take care of yourselves. Be good to yourself, and let's just go ahead and have an awesome 2025. All right, bye bye.